एकम् अक्षरं हृदि निरन्तरं भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता वा पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। तेहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तभावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिय दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्। सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्। Namo Ramana. In this, the Thursday satsang from Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, as is usual, we will be reading from the work Guru Vachaka Kovai by Muruganar Swamigal. We will be reading 2 verses selected for us. Each verse reading will be followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that shall be followed by a 10-minute practice of Atma Vicharam. After these 2 segments are completed, today there will be summing up remarks by Shri Venkatesh Deshpande ji, and that shall be followed by an offering of the Sri Ramana Stotram by Vaibhav ji, and we will offer self-enquiry at that time also, as the devotees team has taken sick here. So we will be offering self-enquiry alongside the offering of Ashtotram chanting by Vaibhavji. We begin this evening satsang by taking the first verse, verse number 560. We find this verse occurring in the second segment, that is meditation on the truth, The first segment following the prefatory verses, the first segment is investigation into the truth. The second segment is meditation on the truth. And the final segment of verses is Anubhava or experience of the truth. We find this verse 560 in meditation on the truth, and the subheading is waking and dream. Waking and dream. Verse number 560. The answer, dreams appear and disappear in a few seconds, but the waking state endures for a long period of time, is given merely as a reply when the question is raised. The question only arises as a consequence of the tricky activities that come from association with the mind, which is Maya. There is a note. The question referred to here is probably the following one, that is asked in Who am I? Parts of the answer are also summarized in verse 559. Is there the Who am I question answer is there no difference between waking and dream? Is a question asked Bhagavan. Waking is long and dream is short. Other than that, there is no difference. Just as waking happenings seem real while awake, so do those in a dream while dreaming. In dream, the mind takes on another body. In both waking and dream states, names, dream states, thoughts, names and forms occur simultaneously. The first half of the verse 560 seemed to be saying that this particular answer is only given, is only one that is given to people who still believe in the reality of time. As the next verse indicates, this is not a valid distinction between waking and dream, since time itself is an illusory creation. So we will read 559 and 561. This verse itself is very clear that usually Bhagavan asks us to treat the waking state like a dream. Like from Vyavaharika Satya, there is this treating the world as Vyavaharika Satya for the purposes of exchange and valuation. it is real. But from there, from Vyavaharika Satya, Bhagavan actually asks us to treat it as Pratibhasika Satya. It is a dream or a projection from the projector or the dreamer or the one dreamer. And that is why these questions arise, that what is the connection between waking and dream, since you are asking us to treat waking as a dream. Now, this particular verse makes it clear that answer from Bhagavan is only when somebody raises that question using their mind. We'll read verse 559 and 561 and then look at this again. Verse 559. If it is said that the dream state which appears is merely the spinning of the mind, then the waking state that occurs also has an identical nature. Just as the waking state appears to be real when it occurs, likewise the dream state appears equally real when one dreams. The verse 560 of course is the answer. Dreams appear and disappear in a few seconds, but the waking state endures for a long period of time, is given merely as a reply when the question is raised. The question only arises as a consequence of the tricky activities that come from association with the mind, which is Maya. 561, which the composer has asked us to read, goes like this. The marvelous power of the mind Maya, which destabilizes us by fabricating all manifestation in empty space, shunya, that flourishes in the false darkness of ignorance, is such that it can confuse a fraction of a second with a kalpa and a kalpa with a fraction of a second representing each as the other. Now, we will now summarize the three verses together. That usually Bhagavan asks us to take the world experiences in the waking like a dream, so that the detachment is there, the consciousness is detached, and unless the consciousness is detached, it cannot turn inward, which is a sadhana Bhagavan asks of us. He always says, turn inward and seek to know yourself. The turning inward is not possible if we take the waking state to be real. That's why he would ask us to treat the waking state as dream. Then the question is asked by some, that is the dream not short? And the waking seems to be so real and long, and there seems to be continuity in the waking, whereas dreams are disjointed. But the answer to that the only difference between waking and dream is that one is long and one is short. The dream being short and the waking state seeming to be long, is given only when the mind is yielded to. And the question is arising because this short and long is also a play of the mind. In Ulladu Narpadu, in Saddarshanam, Bhagavan says, Namandri Naaledu Nadedu. Apart from the self, can there exist time or space? Nam udambel naal nattul nam paduvam. If we identify with a body, we get caught in the trap of time and space, time and place. Nam udambo, are we this body? No, are we not the self? We are the self. Yeah, nam udambo. நாம் இன்று அன்று என்றும் ஒன்று, நாடு இங்கு அங்கு எங்கும் ஒன்று, நாம் உண்டு நாள் நாடில். So apart from the self, there is no time, there is no place. So this time of short duration and long duration arises only after the ego arises. Therefore, if the ego is inquired into, the terms short and long in duration, they vanish. That is why the 561 verse says, a moment, a short period is taken as a kalpa. A fraction of a second is taken as a kalpa, and a kalpa is taken as a fraction of a second. So that is possible due to Maya. That means both are unreal. Neither the fraction of a second nor the kalpa are real. Only the Atman is real. There is a story appended to verse 561, the story of H.W.L. Punjaji. H.W.L. Punjaji is sitting, that's a long reading, so I will just shorten it and explain or just paraphrase that account. He is sitting in front of the Ganges and all his janmas flash before him. All his janmas, from that of a worm, from that of a stone, from that of a tree, all the janmas that his consciousness has undergone till that point, they flash before him. That is millions of years of evolution. They flash in a few minutes or few seconds. So all that is condensed in short period of time, and both the short period of time and long period of time are absorbed in the self. They are mere play of Maya. So taking the three verses together, we find that Bhagavan's Upadesham is Pratibhasika Satya for sadhana, that is, treat the world like a dream. But if we raise a question that is there not a difference between dream and the waking, because dream is long and dream is short and the waking is long and the waking is continuous, then both those are play of Maya, play of the mind, and those differences are really not there. So we can take what is common both in waking and dream, thoughts, names and forms, they appear and disappear simultaneously. And one other point to be taken is that while dreaming, those events, those happenings appear real to us. But we know that there is a gap between waking itself and dream itself. So the entire waking is false or is falsified while dreaming, and the entire dream is falsified while waking. Therefore, both the states have to be transcended by inquiring into the truth of the one who is common and present in all the three states of waking, dream, and deep sleep. So that is the inquiry we are going to practice. That we have to understand that we will gain the tapas of detachment only if we take the waking state to be like a dream. But if we get into differences between dream and waking state and get into argument about that, then that whole purpose of comparing and bringing the waking state as a dream is lost. The purpose of telling treat the waking like a dream is to get detachment from the waking state. Now suppose we find the differences between waking and dream and engage in serious arguments about those differences in the waking state, then we get attached to the waking state and the arguments. Therefore, the very purpose is defeated. That's why Bhagavan is saying, whatever differences of long and short is there, that should be taken as Maya, the play of the mind, and one should go to the root teaching that both waking, dream, as well as deep sleep, all the three are unreal. Only the Atman, which is present in all the three states unchangingly, that alone is to be held in Atma Vicharam. And let us practice that for 10 minutes. Ujjwalji, you will be able to help us out?
Yes, sir, correct.
Okay. Namo Ramana. The second verse selected for us is verse number 773. Verse number 773, which we still find in the same segment, that is meditation on truth. Meditation on the truth. The subsegment is remaining still. Remaining still, summa iruttal. The instruction or the upadesham of Bhagavan to summa iru. That is the subheading, and this is the first verse under that subheading. Verse number 773. The method of true and supreme tapas that our Lord Ramana declares to be worthwhile and which the mind should firmly hold on to is this and no more: being still. Other than this, there are absolutely no thoughts to think, nor any duties to be contemplated by it. I'll read that. The method of true and supreme tapas that our Lord Ramana declares to be worthwhile and which the mind should firmly hold on to is this and no more: being still. Summa iruttal. Other than this, there are absolutely no thoughts to think, nor any duties to be contemplated by it, by the mind. So this is a verse that goes to the very heart of Bhagavan's teachings, that Summa Iru, the method of true and supreme tapas. Now, why it is called true and supreme tapas is that both the gathering of energy of tapas and the movement towards the light are simultaneously done. The removal of darkness and approaching of light is done at one stroke. And the question is asked by Kapali Shastri and Natanananda Swami in two different contexts about this Summa Irithal. First, let us see what Bhagavan says to Natanananda Swami. Before that, let us see what is this Summa Irithal. We have this practice of Atma Vicharam, where as the thought, the non-self arises, one is not to pursue that with more thoughts, but is to diligently inquire, for whom is this thought? What is that I to whom this thought has arisen? The answer will be to me. Then the who am I turns the attention which was going towards the thought back onto itself. Tannaittan aridal. To know oneself is to hold oneself. The act of holding oneself, we get into being still for a moment till a next thought comes and disturbs. Then we let go of that thought and get back to the inquiry, for whom and to me and who am I. Again, there is a moment of stillness. Then Kapali Shastri comes in and asks on our behalf, oh Bhagavan, is this going to go on infinitely? That Thoughts are going to come and I'm going to have to let it go and hold the who am I? Is this going to go on endlessly? Then Bhagavan says no. That it need not go on endlessly and it will not go on endlessly. There will come a time where you will not have to wait for thoughts to arise. You will be able to directly hold the I. The tapas, the strength of tapas would have been gathered enough by letting go of thought and holding the I, that one would now be able to hold the I directly. That is called summa irithal, being still. And Bhagavan says to Natanananda Swami that this summa irithal is not laziness, is not indolence. Natanananda Swami asks, this summa irithal, when somebody says that fellow is unemployed, he summa irka, then we say that fellow is a useless fellow. He is the most worthless person in the world. Whereas here, this is the most worthy task for the mind to do, says Bhagavan. So, to Natanananda Swami says, all other sadhanas you do, all other secular and spiritual sadhanas that we take on are done with part of the mind and with frequent breaks. Whereas the act of being still, summa irithal, has to be done with the whole mind and without breaks. And Maya, which is untouched or undisturbable by any other sadhana, is directly attacked and dissolved by the sadhana of summa irithal, says Bhagavan to Natanananda Swami. So, the gathering of the Shakti of tapas required to hold on and the movement towards the self happens simultaneously in summa irithal. Though in summa irithal, is vasana indicated or not? Because there is effort. Because there is the effort of holding, we say that there must be some underlying vasana. When the same summa irithal is effortless, is completely natural, that is the realization of the self. In fact, the term realization of the self itself is a misnomer, because how can you realize something that is already real? In what sense? That you are not making it real. It is already real. We have just let go of the unreal, and therefore the reality is revealing itself spontaneously. That is why this method of being still, summa irithal, is not indolence. As a joke, we used to say that when somebody is unemployed and living off another, and a useless person, we say he is living like a lion. Because the habit in the lion, it is assumed amongst human beings that the male, if he is unemployed, then he is referred to like a male lion, because the hunting is done by the lioness and the distribution is done by the male. So jocularly we say somebody who is unemployed as the most worthless person. But the summa irithal is a supreme task. All secular jobs you can do, all duties you can perform are combined and done at one stroke. This being still, other than this, there are absolutely no thoughts to think, nor any duties to be contemplated by it. So the one who is abiding in this stillness, obviously he will not have any thought, but there will be absolutely clarity that the paramount duty set upon a jiva is being performed. When one is sitting still, the clarity of Guru Upadesha and Swanubhava, that this is the job for which the jiva has taken, has come upon this kind of existence, and this is the only purpose, this is the primary purpose, this is the paramount purpose for which it has taken and gone through all the travails, and now it has come upon that duty, that job, other than which nothing else is required, and therefore with that awareness it remains still. Now the whole mind is engaged, and no time is allowed to come in. Like in the previous verses we had seen that the moment time is allowed, it can be a movement, it can be a kalpa, it can be a whole kalpa which has crept in. Therefore in atman there is no time, the whole area of time which can expand like that is completely moved away. The whole area of place that I have to go to that place and then the pilgrimage is complete, that is also removed. So all kshetras and all good times are brought here and now. And when one stills the eye, one is doing the true and supreme tapas. Now, when discussing the tapo bhumi or the tapo loka in the Dvaita discussions that I have come across, they say that the tapo loka is just below the Brahma loka. That is the one the one act that can now necessarily take us to Brahmaloka or inquiry into Satya is tapas. And what is the supreme tapas that one can do? Is to be still, is to summa iru. Be still and know that that still I am God. He is the supreme being. He is the eternal being. It is by direct awareness, not by thought. Bhagavan says in his first, the self-realization experience, that all this I am describing to you, the abidance in the self, the realization that I am the deathless spirit, happened almost without thought, he says. Just there is a thought to clarify what has happened, then that thought too is dissolved. Oh, this is what has happened. The body is still, they will take to the funeral pyre and burn it. The breath is still, the thought is still. But after these three have been stilled, am I dead? Am I not existing? No, my existence is shining as I am the deathless spirit. When the I is still summair, then one realizes that that is the deathless spirit, which does not have the variation as birth and death, which is beyond the panchakoshas, which is beyond the three states of waking, dream and deep sleep, which is beyond the reaches of thought, and which is the true and supreme tapas, which Bhagavan says, other than this, the mind, other than this, there are absolutely no thoughts to think, nor any duties to be contemplated by it. So, if we can take one thing, one sadhana, that is enough. That is summa iru or summa irutal. So, let us practice that for 10 minutes. If one is ready, then one can directly hold the eye. If not, it doesn't matter that when thought arises, let go of thought and inquire, for whom has this thought arisen? To me. Who am I? Is stilling. And each time we still, the tapas is gathered. And Bhagavan says, one will come to that point where the tapoloka jivana has gathered the tapas strength to hold the eye directly, and being still is practiced directly till all vasanas are erased, and one realizes that to be still is natural and effortless. With Bhagavan's grace, let us sit in practice of being still for 10 minutes. Ujjwalji, you can set the time for us.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Namo Ramana. I request Venkatesh ji to give us the summing up remarks. Namo Ramana sir.
Namo Ramana. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. These two verses, 560 as well as 773, are very closely related to each other. So one is obviously talking about the waking and dream, and the other one is talking about remaining still. If you really think from the three sections that are there in this book, there is the investigation of the truth, and then there is the meditation on the truth, and then there is the experience of the truth. If you look at Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, so Shravana and Manana would be the investigation part of the book, and Nididhyasana is the meditation on the truth, and obviously the realization of the truth is the experiential path. It's like what Swami Shivananda says: serve, love, give, purify, meditate, and then realize. So exactly the same thing that we are doing the Nididhyasana part. Nididhyasana is actually one of the most important parts of our sadhana because it has to be done every day, it has to be done regularly, and if it's done properly, what will happen? You will have the experience of the truth. So let's do manana on the waking and the dream state. The dream, what happens is if I wanted to become a fighter pilot, I had a dream of a fighter pilot. I'm flying an F-16 plane, and my whole family is appreciating that I'm flying an F-16 plane. And then what happens was I wake up to this dream. Say for example, I come back and I wake up to this dream and say, oh, that was just a dream. I actually there's no reality to the dream. We are able to drop. See, the one thing we have to see is we are able to drop the dream instantly. We it's like when we go to a theater, when you're watching a movie and we come out of the theater, you will experience that you're able to drop that experience immediately. Because why? You know that it is not real. So that's a very important thing that we need to be aware of whenever we're doing anything. So in the waking, what happens is when we wake up to dream, we realize, oh, it was just a dream. But what happens is that the waking state has some sort of a continuity between yesterday and today. There seems to be that I did this yesterday and I am trying to do the same thing today. I'm continuing to do that. That's why the waking seems a little real for us. The dream, if we had a good dream, for example, you try to get that same dream. Oh, I hope I get that same dream again. If I got Bhagwan in my dream last night, I wish I get the same Bhagwan dream tonight also. Then I'll be very happy. And then what happens? You try to get that dream, and you don't even fall asleep. So exactly the same thing happens in the waking state. The waking state, when you do the same action twice, you will not get the same result. And that one more thing that we have all experienced, you just look back at our lives. Just look back into our times. Many of us have lost our loved ones. Many of us have lost our loved ones. And what happens? If you go back and think about that, if it feels as if it's a dream. It does not feel real. Like me, when I think about both my parents who are not around, it feels like that life was a dreamy life. It was not real. It is now the life that I'm leading seems a little real, but not that life. So what really happens is each one of us lives in the waking state or in the deep sleep state. In the dream state, we lead life now. Everything is happening now. A moment that is gone has already finished. A moment that is going to come, nobody knows about. So everything is happening now. So the important thing is we start living in the now. Then what happens? If you really see in Advaita, they talk about the four states. They talk about the waking state, the waking state, the deep sleep state, and the dream state. And they always talk about the fourth state. Why are we talking about the fourth state? Because there is the waking, dream, deep sleep, and this what's called the turiya. Turiya is the consciousness which goes across all these three states. Now, if waking was true, if a waking was true, then why would the people talk about going to turiya? Why would people talk about stillness? So the point really is that we need to understand that in our sadhana, when we experience the mind, then we experience these all the three states. And we have to go to the fourth state. Actually, it's not the fourth state, it's the underlying state for all the other three states. So what is the reality? Like we keep giving the example of gold. Now you may have a ring, you may have a necklace, and you may have a bracelet. And what's the reality among in each of them? It's only the gold. Gold is the reality. You pull out the gold, and what happens to all those three? Those three are no more there. So exactly the same thing. The consciousness is actually the reality in all the three states. You pull out the consciousness and everything vanishes. Nothing is there. So Bhagwan was also always saying that be silent. Why? Silence is a very important thing. If you really see in many of our conversations, if you have some tough conversations, many people say, and Bhagwan did this beautifully. Many of them ask so many questions there's to ask Bhagwan. Many questions Bhagwan used to just be silent. He used to not answer. Why? Did he not know the answer? He knew the answer, but he wanted the devotee to do contemplation, enough of contemplation to be able to understand it himself. Because it is like teaching a person how to fish. If you keep on giving a person fish every day, then what happens? He'll get dependent on you. But if you teach the person how to fish, then what happens? He's no more dependent on you. Exactly the same policy Bhagwan had. Bhagwan believed that it's important that each one of us does our own manana and contemplation and understand the truths. So a Jivan Mukta like Bhagwan obviously was an avatara. What does he do? He's totally aware of things. It's not that he's not aware of things. Like a lot of devotees could come and sit in front of Bhagwan and say, Bhagwan is not looking at me. He's looking in a different direction. But Bhagwan was aware of everything that was happening around him. And he was in total stillness. That's the important thing that we need to understand. We should never forget this aspect of the Upadesha that Bhagwan gave to his mother. And that's the first Upadesha he gave was based on prarabdha, whatever is to happen will happen. Whatever is not to happen will never happen. The best thing to do is to be in silence. Sumaira. So why is Bhagwan trying to say Sumaira? Everything happens by a plan. There is a plan for everything. This whole world is just a Icha of Bhagwan. There is a Bhagwan loved this world and all the people, beings, and the human beings. That's why everything is happening by a prarabdha. Prarabdha means what? Based on a certain life that we have had, we will experience certain things. But important thing we need to understand, all that experiences happen for the mind, body, and intellect, not for you. That consciousness which is ever present, which is the witness to everything that is happening. So like people say, that they say, my dreams have come true. Now, what do you mean by dreams have come true? They say, oh, dreams means if I had dreamt about something, that has come true in my wakeful state. But actually, nothing has happened because both are dreams. This is the dream where you dreamt about, you had your dreams was false. This and passing, it is there. At that point of time, it seems very real. Jagat Mithya. Jagat mithya means what? World is there, but it's just an illusion. It's just like a passing show. It's like the cinema theater. Once you go into cinema theater, you come out and say, "Oh, that was nothing, or nothing was real in that." Exactly the same thing. Bhagavan is saying that when you say dreams come true, what happens? The dream was there. It came true in the waking, but actually, it was both was the in the dreamers dream world was there, in this wakers world is there, but both of them are just like a passing show. So when both are a passing show and there's no reality to that, then what is the important thing? Using a viveka and vairagya, discrimination and dispassion, we have to understand what is sat and what is asat. And this is very important in our sadhana to to be able to see this very with total clarity. And if we're able to see this with total clarity, then we will understand that this is just a passing show and I must be quiet. I must, the whatever has to happen will happen. Whatever is not to happen will not happen. Let me enjoy this journey. And Bhagwan looks after everything and he does everything. He's the master of placement and timing. He's absolute master. You look at our lives, whatever we expected, whenever we expected, it happened, and to the best of our ability as well as timing. So, important thing that we need to do as devotees of Bhagwan is that we have to be wake up to this waking state. Once we wake up to this waking state, like we do when we wake up to the dream, then we will move towards stillness. Once we are still, then we are always abiding in the self. And we are abiding in the self, we are fearless and free. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Namana.
Namo Ramana sir. May I request Vaibhavji to take us through the chant? Oh, Pratnama is also there. Namo Ramana. So we will all offer Atma Ucharam. So while they are chanting, we will inquire who is the listener, the life current, the deathless spirit which is inside, which is behind all the that the ego is. That is what we are holding in Atma Ucharam. The enquiry is who is listening is the enquiry. I request Vaibhavji and Pratnama to give us the chanting. Namo
Yes.
Ramana.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितम् श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रम् भुवनम् समस्तम् गुहाहितम् तम् रमणम् गभीरम् चिन्ताविहीनम् हृदि चिन्तयामि ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः ॐ गुरवे नमः ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः ॐ महौजसे नमः ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः ॐ तीव्राय नमः ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलम् प्राप्ताय नमः ॐ तपोमयाय नमः ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातीताय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजदशराकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः। ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलहृद्बोधस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ ऋचान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणादृशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनाम पूजां समर्पयामि। यस्तानोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवश तादात्म्यभावं गतः ऋन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनासेकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana Vaibhavji and Pratnamma. Thank you.